You're locked in a building with a notorious serial killer who captures his victims, drugs them, and hunts them down through his labyrinth of gruesome traps. No one knows you're there, and every room and hallway could kill you without warning. The Collector is back and more sinister than ever, and I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat every trap in the collection. 3 students are out for a wild night at the private club, and none of them know that this entire building has been designed to kill everyone inside. Elena here discovers her boyfriend cheating, and after punching him in the face, goes upstairs to get away from the noise. In a room, she finds this giant box, and something is inside. She opens it up to find a man fall out, immediately pushing her out of the way of a giant metal spear aimed straight at her head. Okay, we probably should have checked the Yelp reviews before coming here. Now personally, as a claustrophobe, I wouldn't even be here in the first place. A club that has only one entrance, keeping you in with a giant steel door and letting in way too many people is a serious fire hazard. There are too many horror stories of clubs getting burned down because when drunk people play with fire, no one is safe. And even if you're not interested in fire safety, my general rule is don't open the mystery box. It's never a good surprise. But what Elena here doesn't realize is that she's triggered an elaborate chain reaction throughout the building as the entrance locks shut, and only the cheating boyfriend notices the blades of a combine harvester lower from the ceiling and move towards the dance floor. Okay, in this case, geometry will save your life. This death trap has a circular rotation, and it's moving inside of a room with right angles. Basic geometry tells me there are 2 safe places in this room, the right angles of each wall. A circle with such a large diameter won't be able to close the gap, and you'd be able to lie flat against the wall in safety. Now this brings us to an awkward problem. If we want to survive, we can't alert the others. Mad panic and scrambling will guarantee everyone's deaths, because we can't quickly move through the crowd or we'd get trampled. Only a finite amount of people can squeeze themselves into the corners, and if you want to be one of them, mum's the word. Also, most of these people have been here longer than us and are therefore much more drunk. Unless some of them are legendary drunken masters, where your response time improves the more you drink, they're not going to respond with enough clear rational thinking to save themselves anyway. Get to the opposite wall and lie flat on the ground, then help those nearby, but only in that order. Upstairs, the man in the box begs the girl to help him, but she runs away, leaving behind her bracelet, which he turns into a lockpick, setting himself free of his shackles. Now, it's perfectly understandable to freak out, but running out the door is not going to help, because we could be walking straight into another trap. If you've just been attacked by a hole in the wall, you have to assume there are more, and you can't expect to just run downstairs and out the door. This man just saved your life, and he's shackled to the box, so we're safe enough to find out what he knows before leaving him inside. She exits the room and watches in horror as 2 people run into a tripwire, getting sliced by blades popping out of the walls. Downstairs is even more horrific. A group of clubbers have been trapped in a steel cage that will slowly crush them to death. Okay, if you are inside of this, panic would be completely taking over right now, but we can't lose our cool. There's still a chance to survive, but this trap can only be beaten by teamwork. The human body can exert surprising amounts of force because isometric contraction is 40% stronger than concentric contraction. That means human muscles can basically resist force greater than they can apply it. Now, most of them are trying to resist the cage, but arm strength is not what we should be relying on here. There are at least 15 people inside of the cage, but none of them are communicating with each other. I would order everyone to lay on the floor and collectively push up with their legs against the lowering cage ceiling. We might be able to match or exceed the force of the machine together until someone on the outside can find the gears and jam them. Elena here watches her friend die, but suddenly comes face to face with the masked man who's responsible for all of this, the Collector. She runs away confused, and he follows after her. The injured man tears boards away from the window and turns around to see the Collector standing right behind the girl. He warns her, but it's too late. She's grabbed from behind by the masked man. This guy takes his chance to escape by grabbing a dying man and jumping out of the window, using his body and this car to cushion his fall. He breaks his arm but gets up and limps away from the club, and the Collector watches him leave. He's not going to let this one go. Now, I like the thinking here. Use what you have, even if what you have is a dead guy's body. But here's the thing, they're not very high up. It's still a dangerous jump, but even a drop of about 48 feet or 4 stories has only a 50% chance of death. And this body will not really soften the blow. It might even be more dangerous because your arms are being used to hold a body when they should be protecting your head. The best thing to do is throw this dead guy out the window to break the glass, then jump out alone onto the car with your knees bent. The car will soften the impact of the fall, and you'll be able to transition the momentum into a roll. The common mistake made here is to stop yourself from falling as quickly and abruptly as possible, and that's just going to get you killed. Meanwhile, the injured man makes it all the way to a hospital where he's handcuffed by the police. Later that night, he's visited by this man, the bodyguard of that girl from the club. He's assembled a team of mercenaries to hunt down the serial killer and bring the girl back to her father, but they'll need Arkin here to lead them to the killer's hideout, because he's the only victim who's ever been there and made it out alive. Okay, now this man Arkin is a thief by trade, so even if he's escaped the collector, he'll be risking death or prison every time he goes to work. If it's me, this might just be the best cash grab ever. She's obviously from a very rich family, so I tried negotiating a huge ransom to help deliver the girl. It's not much worse than his regular job, and this time he's protected by a bunch of soldiers. I take the job and make sure any one of these mercenaries are walking into a potential trap instead of me. Elena wakes up trapped inside a box and pokes a hole in the side of it. She peeks through and sees a man strapped to a medical table being tortured by the collector. He injects something into the man before cutting out his tongue and wheeling him out of the room. Now this is terrifying, but there's a sliver of hope here. This box is not nearly as strong as you think. It looks like a steamer trunk, which is typically made with pine wood slats, canvas, and leather. Pine wood is lightweight, tends to be less dense than most timbers, and is already deteriorating. Now we can't just punch our way out of here, because even if he's left our sight, we don't want to draw attention to ourselves when we escape. I would be looking for other deterioration in other corners of the box for more visibility to assess my external surroundings. And when the coast is clear, I'm breaking through the weak wood panel as silently as possible. Elena cleverly uses the wire of her bra to unlatch the box and get out. She checks out the room around her, finding a dead body in another box. Suddenly the collector returns to find she's escaped, but he doesn't have time to look for her because alarms start going off that sends the collector running out of the room. Arkin and his team of mercenaries are already here, but by triggering this alarm, they've lost the element of surprise. Okay, they should have seen this coming. This thief was caught by the collector 2 weeks ago after breaking into a house and getting locked inside, and it looks like he's learned nothing from this experience. The collector is a trap master, and we should expect that there's a trap behind every door, including this one. I would have made sure this time I came prepared. Guns and knives are not enough here. We need night vision, lockpicks, tools like screwdrivers, wrenches, and crowbars, bolt cutters, mirrors to look around corners, and disarm tripwires and pressure-sensitive traps. If I'm facing this guy for the second time, you better believe I'm coming prepared for every trap I can think of. The girl tries the door and it's locked, but she spots a grate that she could fit through. Grabbing a medical tool, she uses it to pry off the grate and makes her way through the crawl space, looking for a way out. Okay, this was her only way out, but it brings up an important point. This building is really old, which can be an advantage because the weaker it is, the easier we can escape it. I would look for signs of weakness throughout the building for other opportunities to escape. Eroded metal, cracking bricks, or wood that has begun to rot and decay. If we were struggling to avoid a trap, identifying weak or thin walls could help us escape the room or go around the trap if we're paying close attention to our surroundings. The mercenaries enter this room where they find used needles littering the floor and huge cages. It's really unnerving, and these are all warning signs they should have been paying closer attention because things are about to go wrong very quickly. The team loses radio contact with their lookout guy as he gets stabbed to death by the collector. Then Arkin here is jumped by a crazy man who they have to put down. They find out the collector is not only capturing people, but drugs them, cuts out their tongues, and turns them into a slave horde security system. But they're right where he wants them, as the collector unleashes his next death trap. Another one breaks free and they take it down, but more are on the way. They're attacked by the junkies, and there's too many to fight off. Okay, this is overwhelming, but if we don't panic, we can get through this. By running the out of here. A horde of drug-addled junkies is not worth spilling blood or wasting bullets. We're looking for the girl and trying to kill the collector, and doesn't necessarily get us any closer to our goal. I would take the chains nearby and hook them to the cages across the pathway to slow down the junkies. This makes them easier to shoot as they'll get stuck or have to crawl under, and it gives us time to look for another exit. The team finds another door and escapes. They discover their cell phones are being jammed and can't get any signals. There's no way they're going to get any help now, and they have no choice but to keep moving forward. Meanwhile, the girl emerges from the vents into a very strange room. It's got a vanity mirror full of makeup and a box in the middle of the room with someone inside. She decides to open it up, and this woman comes out. She's very suspicious of the other girl and too afraid to escape the room. Okay, this girl's terrified, and all the botched makeup on her face tells me a dude applied it, so he visits regularly. That's actually a good thing. We can ask her questions and might get some information that can help us escape. She's probably kept only in this room and likely doesn't know the layout of the building, so I'd be asking when the collector might be expected to visit her. If she has any sense of timing, we can plan an ambush for him when he stops by. She still has this medical tool from the other room, and it looks like a scalpel, so she could do serious damage as long as they catch him by surprise. The team continues pushing forward and enters a room that's full of boxes and footprints on the floor. This wounded guy appears and he's covered in strange scars, telling them he didn't make the collection. Before they can figure out what that means, a hidden explosive strapped behind his neck goes off. Then spikes come out of the ceiling and skewer one of the mercenaries. The bloody commotion lets the thief sneak away. Okay, they walked right into this one because they were too focused on the main event and not looking at their surroundings. This is a trap house. Nothing is safe. Every footstep can be deadly. They need to scout every new area before advancing. I'd be throwing things on the floor to see if it triggers anything, or blowing powder in the air to look for hidden lasers. I take every precaution. They do none of this and get seriously shafted. As for the man, I would have fired a warning shot to stop him from approaching. If he continued, I would shoot his leg because he could be a threat. Remember, nothing in this building is safe, even the victims. Elena here almost runs into a tripwire, but the other girl warns her just in time. She avoids a grisly death and finds out that the collector likes this girl for some reason. Her hearing aid suddenly screeches with feedback and the girl freaks out, yelling that she can't win. Hearing this, the collector appears and she breaks for it, running through a maze of corridors. With some quick thinking, she's able to hide in these pipes above. The collector hears creaking and checks above him, but the girl manages to slip away. Okay, she got lucky here. There was an air vent conveniently within reach for her to escape, but if there wasn't, she would have been caught and killed with no way out. This is an old building, and you wouldn't be able to get up there without making some noise. The shifting of your weight and all the corroded metal and squeaky screws would give away your position very quickly. Now, hiding is one thing, but diverting is another. I would look for a liquid like blood to leave shoe tracks in one direction, take them off, and walk the other way. It's not a permanent solution, but it buys me more time to escape without him hot on my trail. And if I couldn't find water or blood, there's always urine. It's gross, but in a situation like this, you need to be willing to do anything to survive. Meanwhile, Arkin here is searching for an exit, but has to hide when one of the mercenaries comes looking for him. He hangs inside this dumbwaiter chute, but falls and lands on a pile of limbs. He sees gasoline nearby, but the sounds of the drugged-up prisoner screaming pushes him quickly back up. He climbs out of the chute and finds himself in a different room, and it's filled with jars of dead animals. Really freshens up the place. Okay, I'm super annoyed that this guy saw gasoline sitting conveniently on this pile of dead bodies and didn't even think twice about using it, because this could have changed everything. Besides the traps, our biggest problem is that we never know where the collector will be, and this solves that problem. I would take the gasoline because it gives me the opportunity here to set a trap for him. If one of his rooms is on fire, he won't ignore it. He'll come to investigate. I would wait for him to arrive and trigger one of his traps from hiding. This tripwire could be pulled at the right time for him to cross, and he wouldn't expect it. We get one shot at this, and there's no guarantee, but it's the closest we can get to killing him without having to touch a weapon. He continues exploring the room and finds the collector's latest victim nailed to a wall. She's begging him for help, but that's when the collector comes into the room and slits her throat, as Arkin watches in hiding. He waits for him to leave and uses a small metal wire he finds to pick the lock of this door. Meanwhile, the girl finds the rest of her hearing aid placed on top of a bear trap, and as quickly and carefully as possible, she takes it back and puts it in her ear. Okay, hearing is obviously important because we need all the senses on high alert to keep us safe, but sticking your hand inside a bear trap is not the way to do it. These bear traps have handles, and with such a small piece of equipment, it wouldn't be hard to lift the trap from the other side and let the hearing aid fall off the trigger. But I wouldn't stop there. These bear traps might be easy to avoid when nothing is chasing you, but if you're running from the collector, this hallway could actually get you killed. I'm taking the time to clear the hallway and trigger every trap by dropping my shoe in. It's heavy enough to trigger the trap and small enough that it won't get caught in it, so I can take it back and reuse it. The thief enters another art gallery where he gets jumped by the mercenaries who don't notice the collector standing overhead. He catches one with a hook and sends another flying around a corner and into a room before he escapes. They all might have survived if they remembered the 21-foot rule taught to police across America. That's the distance it takes for someone with a knife to charge and kill you before you can draw your gun and neutralize them. They should have realized that they were too close to unholster and fire their gun safely. I would have backed out of melee range and circled him to give myself some time to draw my weapon and get a better shot. Suddenly, a girl appears. It's the one who Elena saved earlier. She promises to help them find the other girl if they let her out. On their way to find the girl, they hear the other mercenary screaming as she's tortured by the collector. They follow the noise through a room full of mannequins and find it's another trap. He used speakers to fake the location, luring them to a bomb. It goes off and the bodyguard barely escapes as all the mannequins are triggered to explode. Arkin notices the cable running through the mirror and breaks it, finding a secret passage to safety. Okay, apart from being amazed at how quickly he sets up these traps, we need to recognize the signs of one if we want to avoid walking straight into it. These mannequins were arranged and organized. There's an identifiable design here, and it's enough to tell me that it's a trap. Even if we don't know what the trap is yet, we can test the waters. First, I'm not walking through here without sweeping it. I'd push the mannequins down to see if they trigger anything. If not, I'll walk further in and call out to the mercenary, looking for a response. We have enough men and guns here that the collector would be foolish to challenge us, so I don't mind making noise at this point. Elena here finds the mercenary tied up in a net full of razors with a microphone hanging nearby. She releases the woman from the trap just as the others arrive. Reunited, they move on together and find a room where they can see outside. To their luck, 2 homeless men are nearby, but they're too far away to get their attention. Arkin here comes up with a plan. He borrows the bodyguard's gun and uses it to shoot one of them in the leg so the other guy runs for help. Okay, I would never do this. This gun is the only thing stopping the collector from chasing you through the building and killing you. Shooting through a fan at a bad angle from the 3rd floor and hitting him 50 yards away, this guy basically just won the lottery. Personally, before wasting my bullet on a bad shot, I would try having the 5 of us make as much noise as possible. Bang on metal, shout and scream, the sound might reach them even this far away. The EMTs and police arrive on the scene and he uses their last bullet to get their attention. The cops call for backup and the collector realizes he needs to finish this. They decide to wait for the cops, but they're betrayed by the other girl. She locks them in and screams into the security camera for the killer to come. The mercenary politely shuts her up, which triggers a trap, and the girl gets crushed to death in an Iron Maiden. The doors burst open, and 2 dogs run in for the kill as the collector empties his gun. They evade his gunfire, but he kidnaps Elena and drags her out of the room. The remaining survivors find that the bodyguard has been caught in a trap with no way to free himself, but he insists they leave him to find the girl. Now this guy has an idea to use the dead dogs, which is admirable, but I wouldn't have pushed them away. It's wiser to take a little time figuring out a solution to free him so that they can all go after her together. I would look for something to push the trap out of range so it lands behind him, or prop it up with something so that it catches before it hits the ground. There's all kinds of things in this room they could have used, and these are all viable options they didn't bother exploring. Later they find the girl strapped to a gurney and set her free, but a steel cage slams down around them. And that's when the collector walks in. He's finally caught them all at once, and shows them these flammable barrels nearby, lighting up a wick that's going to blow them up. The group tries to open the latch with a knife, but drop it out of reach. With no other option, Arkin here has his arm re-broken and pushes his hand out through the cage walls to open the latch, setting them free. Okay, we could have saved this guy a lot of pain. We don't have many people left, and having one arm against a serial killer is a massive disadvantage to the group. When knives won't work and hands can't reach, that's when I would use my shoelaces. We always seem to forget about them, but they're the most useful article of clothing in situations like this. Tie a loop and lower it to catch the lock, then pull it tight and slowly transition it sideways across the bars to unlock the latch. Then they wouldn't have to reset his arm like they do here. They climb down to the gallery just in time and escape a massive explosion. They reach the lobby, but the collector ambushes them, killing the mercenary and knocking out the girl. He's about to finish off Arkin here when the bodyguard appears. The 2 of them get into a fight that the collector wins, but Arkin here stabs the killer, then throws him down the dumbwaiter before setting the man on fire. The thief gets trapped by flames, but Elena rescues him, putting out the fire with the water in the display cases, and together they finally escape the building. Later, he goes to inspect the bodies found in the building and is shocked to find the collector's burnt mask laying in one of the boxes. But he knows that the serial killer is an entomologist and tracks him down to his house, revealing he's been visiting bug collectors in the area until he finally found him. Now that he has, he's going to get his revenge and tosses the collector into a box. But what do you think? How would you beat the collector? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day.